Book The Awoken of the Reef. Revenge 2. Mara calls a caucus of elected representatives in the Sacred Fire, one of the largest hulks in the Reef of derelicts. The fire was built to support habitat construction on Fort Vesta, where Mara hopes to one day anchor the entire flotilla and set down roots. But the hopeful, fearful faces before her make Mara afraid that it'll never happen. What if everyone runs off at the first hint of home? Having come so far, across worlds and eons to see Earth again, how could she ask them to hold back now? "We've found humanity," she tells them. "We've found our ancestors." The cheer and triumph and wonder thrills her to the marrow. Most of these Awoken are distributary born, raised on myths of humanity and the traveler. She had just opened the pages of their storybooks and conjured them to life. What remains of the human species lives in a single settlement. She nods to Uldren, who snaps his fingers for footage. His ship's holographic perspective plunges through fluffy strata of clouds and mist onto the clear air. A lucid Vesta, a perfect instant, the white mountains, the city, and the enormous sphere shattered that hangs above it. "Freeze," Uldren commands. That is the traveler. As the crowd murmurs and thrills, Mara feels herself bridle. She doesn't like that thread of reverence. She doesn't like the traveler looming there, almost but not quite completely dormant. Like a dying heart ripped from its body and thrown into warm water, it ebbs and flutters if you look at it with the right sensors. If the traveler had the power to protect anyone, wouldn't it protect more than just one huddled settlement? Isilla, daughter of Scylla, leaps up from the crowd, too small to make it on her own, but buoyed up by the enthusiastic neighbors. "What are we waiting for?" she calls. "That's everything we came to find. They need us, and that's where we belong." Uldren and Mara trade glances. Uldren snaps his fingers, and the recording resumes. Something moves in the treetops. The canopy roils and parts. A red-brown aircraft shaped like a fat, wingless, furiously angry dragonfly bursts from cover and climbs to intercept. Uldren's head-cued camera tracks the target, and Mara imagines his narrow grin as he waits for the other guy to make a move. The dragonfly ship drops a brace of little needles, and they erupt into dirty orange flame and come arrowing after Uldren. Everyone in the caucus gets an earful of his grunts as he whips through a high-G turn and climbs away. Those are Fallen. They're species of interstellar scavengers and subsentience pirates. They've been here for a long time, and they've sacked most of the large settlements that survived the original fall of humanity. There may be more Fallen than there are humans left on Earth. He lifts his chin to bear the pale scar across his throat. I landed and went looking for prisoners. I was ready when he pulled 2 knives on me, but it turned out he had an extra set of arms. Nervous laughter. Worse, Mara adds, beckoning for pans of deep space passive sensor data. They're all over the solar system. We've detected flotillas of their interstellar ships around Jupiter and Venus. They don't go near Mars, but only because it's under occupation by another alien species. Mercury is... well, you can see for yourself. Gasp of horror at the clockwork cinder, all that remains of the legendary garden world. We believe this may be the work of the Vex, a machine species listed in the ship's spire's threat index. Isilla, famed historian, puts voice to the plea in the crowd. "So they need our help, don't they? We have to go to them. Our ships, our technology, we could make all the difference." No. Mara collapses the projected images between her hands. She stayed up late wrestling with this dilemma, which kept her from wrestling with Sure. It was a choice she had to make alone. We can't reveal our existence, lest the Fallen track us down. We need more information. Our focus must remain on securing this derelict reef, bootstrapping industry and population, and scouting out the solar system. Mara, with all my respect, all my genuine gratitude for bringing us here. Isilla sighs. Who died and made you queen? Mara says nothing, but she thinks. Everyone, Isilla. All of us died and made me queen. Revanche 3. It's bad, sure, Ido says, confirming what Mara already knows, but nonetheless performing the valuable service of mopping away all the blood and tears and allowing Mara to glimpse the actual shape of the wound that divides her people. Not a literal wound, though she is, right now, tending to Uldren's scar, tweezing tiny fragments of fallen metal out for analysis. But the rift in her reef, the schism, now re-schismatic, as if the quake that split the distributary Awoken from Mara's people is now firing off aftershocks. She should have known this would have happened. She shouldn't have told them so much about Earth. How bad? Jur pokes Uldren in the hard gut, where a passing line of molten metal left a red burn. He's under anesthesia, but he snarls at her anyway. As of the last caucus, I'd say 30% of the expedition wants to head for Earth. If you ask the 891, though there aren't 891 of them anymore, it's more like 80%. Mara swears and pulls a bloody line of solidified slag from her brother. Unacceptable. We can't lose their skills or their genes. The Awoken have yet to adapt to the attrition of this harsh, spaceborne world, and tentative mothers are still in the early stages of designing their babies. It's vital to maintain a diverse gene pool, and the Fallen will vector them back to us? I know, Shur says heavily. That's when I'm going to die. The most horrible thing about the words is that they slap down on Mara's consciousness like face-up cars, like truth revealed. Unacceptable, she barks. And then both she and Shur begin laughing, and then, at last, Mara shakes her head and growls. You can't know that, Shur. No one can know that. I do. I don't know how I do, but I do. I know it's something I choose to do, and it's going to be incontrovertibly heroic, which is enough for me. But if that's true, Mara proposes, flinching away from the personal conversation they really ought to have, and all its attendant rawness. If you die when Fallen attack us, it means I won't stop these people from fleeing to Earth, and the Fallen are going to find us, and we're doomed. She's already building intricate models of how the universe might accommodate fate or doom, and how she might go about destroying those things. Could be, I suppose. Shur pulls a parchment-thin rag of dead flesh off of Uldren's wound. Look, I'm the Queen's bodyguard. I always expected I would die eventually. I'm not the Queen. Maybe that's your problem. She flicks Uldren in the chest, leaving a purple bruise, fading. What is with you two anyway? You never talk about him. You never seem to think about him at all, but he's dashing himself to pieces for you. How to live as his favorite and only sister for so many centuries, and hardly even smile at him. Secrets, Mara thinks. You've got to have secrets from each other so there's room for him to fill in the gaps with his own happy illusions. Two ships joined together, rigidly will tear each other apart if they try to move, but a loose tether leaves room to maneuver, and can be quickly engaged if necessary. That makes her think of Shur's prophecy again. She sets the shrapnel down in the dissection dish. Very gently. You won't die. I won't allow it. Revanche 4. Of all the disasters that might happen in space, riot is the worst. Breaches can be contained, fires can be starved, plague can be quarantined, radiation shielded, heat vented. But a riot has a will of its own, a chaotic ingenuity that corrodes any countermeasure. Mara crawls from the compartments choked with vaporized coolant. She keeps low and clutches the breather to her face. All she can think of is Kelda Waj's last message and the data attached. Mara, the paracausal effects are strongest around you. Whatever's happened to us, you are the locus. I cannot overstate how subtle and how important this discovery might be. Mara, when we use radioactive decay as a trigger for simulated bombs that could harm Awoken, the trigger atoms are 1,000-fold less likely to decay near you. People are literally safer when you are around. She has to get into the riot. She has to protect her people. A horrible groan vibrates through the habitat structure, and then, with an apocalyptic shudder, something tears off the reef. A ship. A ship is leaving. Mara has failed. Mara drops onto her belly and pants into the mask. Then, cringing anticipation of migraine, she activates the augment, the jury-rigged machine her UTEX produced for exactly this purpose, by extracting Mara's ruined distributary implants and reworking them. She's going to fire command override to shut down that ship's systems, but then she realizes it's a salvaged human vessel, deaf to her commands. She gasps in frustration, sucking down cold bottled air. "Sure." "I'm here," her radio whispers, pinned down in the dockmaster's office. I shot a few in the shoulders, and they seem to have gotten the idea. Let them go. If one ship's away, there's no sense holding back the rest. Our position is compromised. Understood. Broadcast to everyone, I'm going to allow anyone who wants to leave the reef to go. This is their one and only chance. She rolls onto her back and stares up into the swirling vortices of coolant, seeing faces, futures, the lives she had just lost, the lives she might yet lose. She brought her people here to die in the sense that she brought them into mortality, but she never wanted it to happen quickly. They know, Your Majesty, Shur says. They already know. What? You told us. We heard your voice. Awe like gratitude in Shur's Ida's voice. Mara, I heard you. You spoke to me. Revenge 5. Thus the riven Awoken were riven again, into Reefborn and Earthborn. Those who left went to scour the ruins for lost history and give some succor to their human cousins, who still clung to a hostile world. The Awoken came unto these humans, like Nephilim, armed with lost weapons, forgotten industry, and medicine. They were like omens of hope, for they were often taken to be starborn colonists returned to the hearth which was not, after all, so far from the truth. All who looked on them saw the night sky contained more than lurking doom. They bred true with each other, and sometimes hybridized with humans. And in the course of centuries, many forgot the distributary and even the reef. However, there was always in their souls an itch, a vector pointing to a distant place in the asteroid belt, where their queen still dwelt. They've made a difference already, Shur told Mara, not long after the first Awoken made planetfall on Earth. They'll save so many lives just with the provision of medicine, pure water, and construction supplies, that even if they all died by year's end, they would each yield 10 or 20 humans. I know, Mara says with bitter pride. Let the people remember them as saints and paladins, and tell no one how many more they might have saved if they had only kept their faith. For she knew the precious value of each Awoken life. She knew how many she would have to spend and mourned each soul wasted on a lesser purpose. On the day the Fallen struck, Mara was proclaimed queen. It happened swiftly, though after no little debate among the people, for everyone was afraid of a monarch who could speak to their thoughts. Yet they feared more to deny her power and sovereignty, for they had come between worlds in her name. To refuse her would be to refuse their own choice. Awoken, she told them. For the first time in my life I hesitated to reach for power, and now 1 in 3 of you are gone. I cannot deny what the cosmos has made me any longer. I am your one and rightful queen. She knew she had been a fool to pretend to be a peer to the others. What was true of her brother was true of all Awoken. They needed secrets to marvel at, secrets that rhymed with the deep enigma of their souls. they could not follow what they fully understood. There would be a formal coronation later, in a place not yet built. Out of respect for that unhappened coronation, Mara did not at first wear a crown, and later she claimed as her diadem the ring of event horizon that surrounds the observable universe. "My Tekyans," she said, gathering Kaldewaj and the other Uteks who remained, "will be given absolute authority to explore our new power, the Traveler's relics and all associated domains. We are no longer in the realm of pure science. We require an order of mysteries and witches to tend them." Not an hour later, a fallen ketch threw off its stealth and began a deceleration burn towards Vesta. The four-armed predators had traced one of the earthward ships back through all its erratic course changes and to the reef. They had come in search of the source of these blue-aped kin. A salvo of coherent matter guns gutted the ketch, blink-quick death for the mighty ship, ancient fury compressing matter into a relativistic pinhead. It was a waste of weapons that couldn't be recharged or reloaded, however, and the Baron in command had already scattered his skiffs like camouflaged seeds. The fallen raiders came down all over the reef and cut their way inside. The Awoken, young to mortality, terrified of death, fled in fear. Mara, Uldren, and Shur Ido rallied as many as they could. Shur fought in a powered combat shell, but Mara needed to be seen vulnerable, silver-haired and narrowed-eyed, hurling herself at the enemy. She fought with pistol and dagger, and her brother moved like a wraith at her flank. Her people were ashamed of their timidity. No more were the fallen, scuttling alien predators. Now they were an indignity, an offense to the regal privilege to be met with a snarl and a rifle shot. The Awoken saw their desperation. How the stump-limbed dregs stumbled forward emaciated, how the Vandals cringed from battle as they peeled off wall panels, desperate for salvage to please their captains. Armored Shur Ido met the fallen Baron in zero-gravity combat above his spider tank and shot him dead. One adamant shaft through the plate and throat. Ether hissed into vacuum. Shur threw herself upon the spider tank that clung to the sacred fire's hull. Laughing in joy, she cut into the tank's barrel and threw a charge inside, knowing its next vengeful shot would be meant for the sacred fire's main habitat drum, and that she would die in the next catastrophic misfire. The tank fired, the charge detonated. Shur Ido was thrown clear, utterly unharmed. "That was where I should have died," she said in wonder, and in her mind was the smiling face of her queen. Telek 1. Mara made one more attempt, and only one, to call her scattered people home. She had hoped the assault would convince them they had a responsibility to the reef, to come home and repair the damage they had caused. It went poorly, however, for though her tech witches were able to amplify her bond to her people through the augments Kelda had developed, she was only one voice in a maelstrom. Her Awoken had sensitive antennae, in the metaphysical sense, and could not hear her plea through the clamor. Also, the communications engineer kept forgetting to call Mara Majesty or Queen. "Good news," Uldren told her, with a grim delight he always showed after a debacle he had survived. "Ilyn and I went through the fallen communicators' logs. Their Baron never transmitted our position to his Kel. He wanted the prize to himself. We remain secure." "The Baron might have planted a time-delayed beacon," Mara warned him. "Never underestimate these beings. They've lived in the void longer than us." "I already admire them," Uldren confessed. "They've lost so much. Some of them even ritually dismember themselves, Mara, to prove they have the strength to grow back the missing limbs. I tell you that even if we are doomed to dwindle and go extinct, those fallen may outlive us." Mara made a dry note in her log that her brother had at last discovered his true people. For her part, Shur Ido wandered about in a daze, filled with joy to be alive and grief that she no longer knew the day she would die. "In you, all things are possible," she told Mara. "I live because of you." When Mara saw her string her mighty bow, the limbs coiled behind her leg and around her opposite arm, she was glad beyond telling that Shur had survived. In time, Mara appointed paladins to oversee her new military, as Elise Lee had done during the Theodosi War. She created talented starfarers as corsairs to scour the asteroid belt in utmost secrecy and to establish routes and caches that would support the covert motions of the Awoken ships. Most of all, she charged her brother with the mission that occupied her thoughts. "Brother," she said, "never again can I allow my people to be divided. We must offer them more than shielding ice and cold habitat cylinders and the warrens of Vesta. We must make a culture, a thread that binds us all in pride and wonder at the mystery of ourselves. Nowhere does culture flourish better than in a city." "Gather in one place," Uldren warned her, "and you make yourself a target." Mara had considered this and found an answer. "Go forth and find me a power unknown to all other powers of this world. Return it to me, and I shall make of it the cornerstone of my new city, where the Awoken shall dream of all they had been and all that is yet to come." So Uldren went out voyaging among the worlds, swift as a blue-shift ghost. In time he returned to the reef with a creature not larger than his hand, saying, "Behold, sister, the lie that makes itself true. This is an Ahamkara." Telek 2. It was Mara alone who established a covenant with that young Ahamkara, which chose the use name Riven. In honor of its host, it was Mara alone whose singular will and unity of purpose saved the Awoken from that which we now name the Anthem Anathemae, for there was in Mara a very little division between reality as is and reality as desired. She was confident in her centuries of purpose and patient with the winding way by which the river of methods reaches the objective ocean. Blessed are those in their absolute selfhood become selfless. Unappetizing are those who, in their truest self-knowledge, exclude the possibility of self-deceit. "Mara," said Uldren, Queen's brother, "why do you forbid me to speak to the Ahamkara?" "This secret is mine alone," said Mara, Queen. She knew that her brother had only widened the gap between he as was, which is called Nume, and he as he would be, which is called Cost. "Begone to the outer world where I require thee." This was where Shur Ido had spoken to Kelder Wad, and to Asilla at last came before her queen. Kneeling, she said, "Your Majesty, Kelder Wad said that you are God, for there is no difference between your desire and reality. Yet I know that you desire things before they ever become real. Asilla says you are keeping a secret from your brother that he must never know. I think the secret is thus. You are now a god because one day you will become a god, and a god is not temporal. Your brother is not a god because he will never become a god. Shall I worship you?" "Sure," Mara said, falling to her knees, clutching her beloved's face between shaking hands. "Sure, on the day you worship me, you cannot love me anymore, for to worship is to yield all power, and I cannot love what has no power over me." At this, the Ahamkara coiled around her neck, yawned, and showed its fangs, for there was a crevice between what was and what was wanted. "I see," Shur Ido said. "Then to me you are not yet a god." Although in time the knowledge of what Mara would become pushed them apart, it was a kind and happy push, as a friend might urge a beloved companion onward to a distant opportunity, and their days together were spent gladly.
"Jolyon, my man," Uldren Sov whispers, "you and I are going to take the Black Garden." "Oh yeah?" Jolyon Tularakis, famous among crows, sniper, scout, and teller of tales, lies full sprawl prone at Uldren's side. The scrubbed-down length of a supremacy rifle, snugged against his shoulder, nearly doubles his height. "I heard you and I were gonna float satin in a bathtub. I'm serious, Joel, and you'll be dead serious if you go to Mars, hardy-ha-ha. Target range 2,900 meters. Wind and rotation? Wind 21 kilometers per hour from your 3 o'clock. You are 2 degrees off spin north. I'm going though. I really am. You've got to come. You'll never live it down if you miss this one. I'll never live anything down if I'm dead. Shot ready. Send it, Uldren says. The supremacy booms and kicks into Jolyon's shoulder. Uldren doesn't even bother to check that it's a bullseye. You've been with me on all the big ones, Jol. I can't do it without you. Besides, he opens his hand to reveal the ejected cartridge, snatched from mid-air, Cobra quick. If we don't do it, some Guardians will. And the next thing you know, Mara will be inviting them in to do some crow work. Jol rolls onto his right flank to regard Uldren. The master of crows grins his winningest. Jolyon Lorebooks squints and slaps the mag release one-handed. Uldren catches it. You're a lot like your sister, Jolyon sighs. Except that when she plays dirty, she doesn't smile so big. I got all the charm in the family. Uldren waits patiently for Jol to work the bolt and eject the chambered round. He usually wins this little game. Usually. But sometimes Jol surprises him. Nobody's ever been inside the garden. Imagine what we'll find. Nameless horrors? They're all nameless when nobody's named them, Jol. Nobody's ever been. Isn't that enticing? No, because your sister's forbidden it, Uldren. That, he says cheerfully, is how I know it's worth doing. And because the Awoken people will thrill at another tale of his narrow survival. Mara's never really understood how much heroes matter to people. A queen is an indispensable thing, but a hero, now you know what he wants, when he's lost, when he's won. Their departure is meant to be secret. Nobody will turn out, he assures Jol. We'll slip away at zenith. By the time anyone catches on, we'll be aero-braking into Meridian Bay. You're insufferably cocky, Jol says. And by the time we go, the whole city will know you're up to something. They will not. When they set out for their ship, they find the promenades and galleries aswarm with cheering throngs of Uldren's fans and followers. He waves and waves, turning, grinning, in a better mood than he will maybe ever be again. And if one dark mote burns within him, it is the fear and certainty that these people love him only because he is closest to their queen. Do they ever ask themselves why he's constantly breaking her rules? Why he always ventures so far from her? He wants his sister's approval. He knows and accepts that. But he wants her approval for something she did not anticipate, did not plan or foresee, and did not account for. He wants her to thank him with surprise. If you hurl yourself away from someone to test the length of your chain, you cannot know the chain's length until it draws you short. Does that make sense? Uldren thinks so. Uldren is afraid so. Either he is truly free of his sister, free to choose to stand at her side, to choose of his own free will, or the chain is longer than he has managed to run. Give Uldren the chance to torment a Guardian, and he will take it faster than you can shout Rasputin shot the Traveler, an opinion he lobs into Guardians' minds whenever he can. He hates the Traveler's horseflies the way anyone would hate an infant godling issued with coloring book morality and a whining know-nothing paperweight. They are self-righteous, cocksure, callously instrumental intruders in a system they don't need to understand. He hates that the most, the ability to move through the world without caring about how it works. So he's done everything to Guardians he can think of. Shot them up, shot them down, sent them on doomed quests, dunked their ghosts in intolerably stinky selenophenol, drilled holes to bury their obnoxious patrol beacons inside solid rock, tricked them into disassembling mighty weapons. But every time he gets into a gunfight, he wonders what it must be like to do this without any sheer raving terror. Jolyon, he hisses, as the goblin downslope lobs another slap grenade his way. Jolyon, where are you? Nothing. The grenade detonation pops Uldren's ears and pushes ozone up his sinuses so hard that he sneezes. The goblin fires at the sneeze. Glassy shards of melted sand ricochet off his cover and shatter into chiming airbursts. He is 300 meters upslope. Guardians, armored Cabal, and fearless Vex may fight at point-blank range. Mere mortals still hang back so far they can barely see their targets. The infernal thing about Vex is that they teleport. Uldren's not sure if he's pinned down by 10 goblins or 1. A bullet cracks past. Radiolorian fluid splashes on the sand. "I got it," Jolyon radios, breathless, "but I'm pretty sure I also got made." Confirmation arrives in a fusillade of Cabal mortar shells, smart munitions that home in on the sound of the rifle shot. Usually the Cabal do not waste them against Vex. Some Centurion must be eager to use her toys on a target that won't teleport away. Uldren sucks air in relief when Jolyon clicks his transmat switch to signal he's okay. Uldren gets up, panting. He can just see the gate to the Black Garden. Everyone knows where it is, sure. It's just getting inside that's the trick. The air blurs. The roiling cloud of vacuum flux blocks his view, and then, in a blast of discharge, a Vex Minotaur strides into existence. Uldren curses, throwing a jamming grenade, and runs. "There has got to be a better way to do this," he gasps. "Any ideas?" "Only the one you don't like. Thread the gate with a ship coming in at Mach 20. "The gate's not active. Even if we made it through the Cabal guns, we'd need to trick the Vex into opening the door. That means killing the Gate Lord with just our personal weapons." "No, it doesn't," Uldren breathes. "I have a princely idea." This is what Uldren lives for. Skittering past death, brushing its whiskers, leaping away from that toothy maw. "Break contact. We need stealth now. Then, we need to pick a few unfortunate targets." They crawl belly down across the Martian desert like worms. Active camouflage ponchos break up their outlines. The roaming Cabal harvesters growl on the horizon. For the last 8 hours, Jolyon has been picking off Cabal infantry with his rifle, fleeing the eruption of automatic counterfire. Uldren has listened on cracked battle nets as mightier weapons are invoked and brought to bear. The war machine is now inflamed, swollen with outrage. Jolyon touches Uldren's ankle. Fingertips drum out a code. "How far?" 50 meters, Uldren whispers. "If the Vex know we're here, they haven't..." The air prickles. Subsonic groans of power stir in the sand. Something mighty awakens above them. "Never mind," Uldren mutters. The Vex have now reacted. He throws off his poncho, rising with revolver and deflection grenade in his fists, screaming challenge. Jutting from the Martian desert before them is the canted, frigid hoop that is the Black Garden's gate, huge enough to swallow a fallen skiff. It thrills with energy. Out of that aperture emerges the behemoth silhouette of a Vex Gate Lord, metal and mind crashing together, self-assembling, ready to defend this secret place. The Vex are born here, in the sense of baptism, consecrated to service of some terrible purpose that the machines found within. "Hey, big guy," Uldren shouts. "Over here!" Calmly, carefully, Jolyon Lorebooks begins to fire his rifle straight up into the sky. The reports of the Supremacy's huge cartridges spill out across the dunes. The Gate Lord towers above them. Uldren whoops and hip-fires a couple of rounds into the sand at its feet. "Can you dance, sir?" he bellows. "Have you got the footwork?" Inside the Vex entity, there are mighty algorithms constructing a model of this merely temporal place, calculating potential threat, weighing the utility of weapons discharge against the good that power might do elsewhere. This computation is the only reason Uldren's still alive. The bone mic tuned to Cabal tactical channels wakes up at Uldren's throat. They have localized the sound of Jolyon's rifle and are responding. He hollers up at the Vex behemoth and starts to jig.
It's going to rain on Mars. It's monsoon season in Meridian Bay. Did you see the forecast? He grabs Joel by the hand and pulls. Together they sprint towards the Gate Lord and its charge. The Vex machine must know what's coming, but it has to weigh the certainty of Cabal against the tiny possibility of these microbiotic motes slipping into the gate. The Gate Lord raises a weapon to obliterate them. They skid into the gate's threshold, and Uldren activates the deflection grenade so hard he nearly breaks his thumb. A perfect sphere of topologically deflective space-time blinks into being around him. He holds Jolyon close, and together they calm their breath. The barrier is impenetrable, but it will not last long. Until then, there is only so much air to breathe. Outside, the full fury of a Cabal fleet carrier lands on the Gate Lord. When the barrier fades, the Gate Lord is dead, and Uldren and Jolyon are no longer on Mars. Uldren and Jolyon huddle together, shivering beneath a canopy of white tongues. The rain pours down. Uldren can't tell where it comes from exactly, somewhere up in the green mist. But the rain falls, and he and Jolyon turn their heads up to drink. Here, at the bottom of a chasm beneath two flower fields, where the garden's immaculate surface divides into tropical feta. Everything grows here, Jolyon mutters. Look at your nails. Uldren studies his hand. He has a dreadful image of his fingernails developing into tight down-curved loops that curl around back into his fingers, completing a hideous circuit to their root. It's awful, and yet it's wonderful, in a transgressive way, in a newborn screaming way. It speaks to him of new and secret things happening here. They're dirty, he says, but I trust you'll forgive me on that account. Rain's not letting up. Shall we move? Aye. Jolyon hauls himself up with a fistful of slithering vines. They try to coil around his wrist. Tiny teeth snapped like letters saw at his skin. He stares at them, starts to say something, and jerks his arm away. Are you all right? For now, Jolyon mutters. For now. They move down the length of the chasm, green mist swirling overhead, ankle deep in a wet compost of flower petals and rich black soil. Wide, flat beetles with arching horns wrestle in the earth. Uldren flips one on its back. The beetle has no interior seen from below. It is just a hollow shell. Jolyon pulls up a fern, and its roots are the branching metallic threads of a circuit board. Tiny squirming things shaped like wet microchips mill in the exposed soil. I don't like this place, Jolyon whispers. We should get back to the surface. He means the garden's surface, the manicured sectors of red flowers that stretch away towards a distant mesa. But it's far too Vex up there, Uldren thinks. They've been in here, gardening, moving earth, making walls, building their ancient constructs of stone and light, trying to tame this place. It's life, he breathes. You're right, Joel. Everything grows here. He cannot let this place be killed. He cannot let it be looted and overthrown like everything else that doesn't fit into the narrow binary dogmas of the Traveler's undead warriors. Excitement seizes him, and he runs ahead, sloshing through the muck, laughing aloud. Uldren, Jolyon shouts after him. What are you looking for? I don't know, he cries back. That's what's so incredible. I can't know. They track the last Cabal soldier from the place of carnage, onward, through the flower fields, following the dribble of black oil that escapes the wounded legionary's pressure tourniquet. Uldren moves with cold, vicious anger. War here in the garden. Petty, detestable war, brought into this place by some blundering Cabal expedition. They deserve what they got. The garden must be left to tend itself, mustn't it? It must be allowed to evolve its secret fruits. The terrain dips. The red flowers fade away to low, woven grass. The wind whispers. Soft words, sentences, with just the beginnings of syntax. The cadence almost musical. Brainstain, Jolyon whispers, fearing infection by a contagious idea. We should... But his voice trails off as Uldren pushes ahead, down into a low vale, slipping easily through tangled undergrowth. Vex. There are Vex here. Dozens of goblins and minotaurs, still as statues and covered in moss, in a ring like some robotic henge. They are singing in faint, wraith-like notes of inhuman clarity. Uldren knows what this place must be. The Cabal legionary huddles behind a stone. Uldren creeps forward. By the time the wounded, bellowing thing knows he's there, he has a knife pressed to its helmet, right above the cleft of its lips and the soft tissues below. "Don't move," he says in Ulurant. "Don't speak. This knife is atom sharp." "I can tell," the legionary grunts in its native tongue. "It's right up in my eyes, practically shaving my bristles. Now you know where you are. Just about the worst place anyone's ever gone." "You say that because you can't smell the air," Uldren says. "It's sweet, like pollen and thunder." "Why did you come here?" "Not by any chance of our own, sir. The milk robots abducted us." The whispers have taken on a soft hint of Ulurant grammar, confirming Uldren's suspicions. This is a place where abstract patterns war for survival, fighting to propagate themselves by preying on each other. The Vex are singing to see how the garden changes their song, and even this conversation has fertilized the air. Why are they here? What do they want? "They come here to pray, sir. They're making vessel out of themselves. They're the worst things ever to be, sir. They hate existence." "How do you know this?" "Oh, from the seeds, sir," the legionary says. "Do you see them?" And without hesitation or second thought, he punches the emergency medic release on his helmet. The pressure seal breaks, and a ring of black gel sprays out, hissing. The legionary slumps over. His helmet tumbles into his broad lap. Beneath the layer of gel, the whole surface of his skull has the pitted texture of a strawberry. Thousands of tiny seeds glisten in the Cabal's flesh. Uldren brushes the skin in fascination. "Uldren," Jolyon radios. "I don't like the expression on your face." "This place has secrets," the prince murmurs back. The bone mic feels cold and inorganic, poorly matted to his flesh, compared to the warm, close-packed pits of the legionary's deformed skull. So many secrets. They grew in him, Jolyon. The garden grew its secrets in him. "Who gives a rat?" Jolyon snaps. "Your Highness, we've got to get out of here, before whatever happened to them happens to us." He's afraid of secrets. Uldren realizes. The unknown terrifies him, which is very sensible, very rational. The attitude of a good scout, a good soldier, a survivor. But Uldren can't stop imagining how astonished Mara would be at this place. What if he could bring her here? What if they could explore this place together?
"Mara, I picked you flowers." The Queen's retinue parts before Uldren. Astonished eyes flicker between his face, his wounds, and the potted flowers cupped in his hands. Some of them see a madman and reach for weapons before they remember that this is Uldren Sov, Prince of the Awoken, beneficiary of the Queen's limitless indulgence. Asphodelia is its name. He kneels and offers it to his sister. It grew only in the Black Garden, until today. We will plant it here in our dominion, where I know it will take root and flourish. It will remind the people of our twin heritage. For a terrible moment, Mara is unreadable. Then she smiles and beckons. Our brother has attained the Black Garden and returned to us. Come forward. She peels a single petal from the flower and lays it across her fingertip, holds it up to the light. Magnificent. Ilan, see to it. She passes it off. Uldren swallows protests. He'd hoped she might plant it herself. Afterward, in private, she is silent and still. He tells her everything he remembers. Did you see the heart? She asks, softly. The heart? Uldren considers his sister's question. After a while, his memories become confused. He was running through a thorny grove, and the branches and prickles were tearing at his cheeks. Huge, wet fruits slapped against his shoulders and detonated in overripe pulp. Fruits shaped like heavy, swollen ghosts. He was huddled with Jolyon beneath a thick cobweb, holding his breath as they listened to voices argue just outside. His heartbeat. Was it his heartbeat? Or another's? He was in an apartment block. He remembers that. He was sitting in the laundry room, a place with a black and white checkered tile floor, watching his crows tumble over and over in the dryer, black feathers flurrying, beaks clacking. A big old female cabal sat in the tub to his left, scrubbing her back with a wire brush. A Vex-goblin with the face of Alice Lee in its stomach stood behind the counter, selling detergent. Uldren, she said, you've got a hole in you. The cabal grunted in agreement. He looked down at himself, and there was a hole in his hand, black and perfectly round. His dryer ran out of time, but his crows were still wet. Uldren, said Mara, shaking him. She does not ordinarily touch anyone. Did you see the heart? It seems the most natural thing in the world that a garden should have a heart. The Vex infest the place, he says. It gives them something they crave. It grows them towards what they want to be. You didn't answer the question, Mara says coolly. It's a perfectly sensible observation. It's the strangest thing Uldren has ever heard her say. Whatever the heart of that place is, he says, pacing. It's a seed, I think. A seed left behind to grow. Like a node of glimmer, or the idea strikes him as a thunderbolt. Or a tripwire. Bait to attract those who seek out and destroy what they don't understand. Bait for guardians. Bait to mark some milestone in the traveler's recovery. I told you never to go there, Mara says. Her eyes burn. She draws her cloak tight. Are you not devoted to me? Sister, he says. Of course I am. Yet you defy me. Yes, Uldren thinks. Yes, aren't those the same thing? How could you care at all for something that never surprises you? He feels suddenly utterly alone. When he sees Jolyon in the arsenal, the realization of his own sheer unbelievable, inconsiderate, disgraceful boorishness makes Uldren gasp aloud in horror. Hey, he calls roughly. He's not sure how to apologize. He hasn't spoken to Jolyon since they returned from the garden. He didn't commend Jolyon to the Queen, or throw him a fete for his bravery, or even ask if he was sleeping all right after everything. He forgot about him. Hey, Jolyon says, not looking up. You weren't at the range yesterday. Oh, you don't even need a spotter, Uldren says, trying to tease him, but it came off flat and dismissive. I've been, dreaming. Recording his dreams, poring feverishly through the origin libraries, searching for confirmation of what his heart wants so desperately to be true. The future of the Awoken could lie in that garden. There is a wellspring of light on Earth, a blinding beacon that will only grow brighter. The Awoken will not survive, not as they are. Mara's vision and the truth of their origins will be lost, diluted by the anodyne philosophy of those city-born ideologues. The Guardians will kill everything they find. What if the garden is the Traveler's antithesis? What if the Awoken can find in that garden a new place of balance? An equipotential between the darkness and the light. As the light brightens, the shadow deepens. Jolyon is saying something. Sorry, Uldren grunts, fussing with his revolver. What was that? I said we should talk about what happened in there. Yes, he realizes now how afraid he was that Jolyon wouldn't see the significance of the place. Revulsion and fear, yes, natural responses, but he must see past them. Yes, we've got to record all our observations before they fade. I should have asked you sooner. Uldren, I don't want anyone to know what we saw. Oh, this kindles a little bonfire in his gut. Of course, no one else has to know. Our shared secrets, huh? I wish I didn't remember what I saw, Jolyon says, fumbling his rifle's firing pin. It hits the floor like a dull chime and rolls under his bench. He doesn't go after it. And I don't keep secrets. Uldren thinks about this for a moment. The profound truth of it hits him like a cold wind. You don't, do you? Jolyon knows exactly where he was born, to what lineage. His capabilities as a marksman are public record. As one of Uldren's crows, he flies dangerous surveillance missions, but he is not a covert operative. Uldren knows everything about him. You gonna be on the range tomorrow? Jolyon asks, too casually. Thought we might shoot a few magazines. Not tomorrow, Uldren says. I have work to do. He is already trying to imagine how Mara would react if he tries to turn the Oracle engine on the garden. The things he might learn, the things she would surely want to know.